Hi, it's Jones here. Before you watch or listen to this episode of the podcast, there's a small disclaimer that there's some technical difficulties when it comes to the sound for the next 30 minutes. So, from me and the team, I'd like to convey our sincere apologies to all of you. So, enjoy the show. Good evening, welcome to the Lofi Evening Podcast on the evenings where people come to tell their stories and where stories have been told. Yes, today we have a special guest. But before we get to her, I'd like to say is that we are finally on Spotify. So for your own convenience, you can listen to all our shows. And this show included is going to be there as well. So follow us if you like the stories and the conversation that we have in this podcast. And I want to say thanks to all the subscribers and especially to all the viewers out there. And thanks for your kind words and your motivational comments down there. It really, really helps us a lot. So today we have Naomi. Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers out there?
Hi, my name is Naomi. I am 26 years old. I'm a geography and tourism student. I studied in St. Mary's School, St. Edmund's College, and Northeastern Hill University. I am an outdoor enthusiast. I cave, I paddle, I do high altitude hiking and trekking.
Wow, amazing, huge resume for that. It's very cool. Okay, have you ever listened to podcasts, or this is your first time being in a podcast?
This would be my second time
Second
in
time.
the podcast. Yeah, so I have listened to a few, but not too many. So yeah, I have an idea of what a podcast is.
What's your favorite podcasters out there? Like, you listen to a few, is that right?
Yes, to a few. It's mostly like, knowledge in history and geography and all of that. It's more like studies for me.
So it's more or less like you are trying to gain more knowledge. But yeah, podcasting
something
is
like that.
more like that.
Yes,
right?
yes,
I think
yes.
it's very most of these unfiltered conversations.
Yes, yes,
right?
yes. Yes.
So before we get to that, I'd like to ask you your story. How did it all happen to you? Because you're so much of a person where you have so much depth yourself, like you said earlier. So can you tell me about how did mountaineering and how this thrill you to be an adventurous person and being related to nature? How did it all happen to you?
It all started from childhood, actually. So I lived in Maki. Maki is quite a high area in Shillong. So in the winter, you usually see the Himalayas from there. So I didn't know at first. I thought they were the clouds because I would see them every winter from my bedroom window. But they was too constant for clouds, you know. So I was quite young. I was 6 or 7, you know. So I asked my mother. What are those? Why are they? You know, if they don't look like clouds. What are they? So she said, those are the Himalayas. Then I became like fascinated. I'm like, Himalayas, so they're mountains, they're big mountains. You know, we studied about them in school and all that. Like, yes, yes. She didn't exactly know where they were located, so I really wanted to find out which Himalayas they were. So I was just, you know, I was gripped from them onwards. I was so fascinated with the Himalayas. So in those times we didn't really have the internet as such, you know. So what I did was my father would buy a lot of travel books and all that. So there was a particular volume of books called Lands and People. So I went through a volume called Asia, and then I went to, you know, to trying to search for the Himalayas over there, and finally saw a picture of Mount Everest, you know, and it was written over that it was in the in Nepal region. So I was so fascinated from then onwards, and I did more and more research after that, and I studied a lot in school as well. Geography was one of my favorite subjects, hence. So that's how I got hooked to it, and you know, as years passed, way into my teens, when finally have the internet and Facebook and so on and so forth, I got in touch with a lot of climbers, a lot of community of climbers on Facebook and so on and so forth. So I basically, you know, educated myself through that, and yeah, that's how I became fascinated with them, and that's when, you know, I had this dream of actually climbing them because I saw it was possible. And the first time I heard of, because I've always wanted to be a very young climber at that point of time. And I actually, you know, years after that, I heard about, you know, the youngest mountaineer in the world climbing Everest, and then it was, you know, Jordan Romero, and after that was Arjun Vajpayee from India. Then I was completely gripped by him as well. So that's when I got in touch with him. I got in touch with Arjun Vajpayee through Facebook, and he was, you know, he was very nice, and he you know, he inspired me and everything to climb the Himalayas and so on and so forth. So he, through his posts, through his photographs and all that, I got more and more hooked to doing things like that. So I just kept myself, in that line of interest. And yeah, I was then way into my teen years, probably when I was 17, I think, that there was a grand opportunity of
You were
Kingfisher.
17.
Yes, I was 17. Kingfisher Blue Mile uh, was doing a reality show. Okay, and this reality show was to select 9 trekkers from all over India to go to Everest Base Camp, and this was documented by NDTV Good Times. So somebody informed me that the trials were being held in Meghalaya, and usually these trials are held all over India, but this particular one was held in Meghalaya. So I jumped at that opportunity, So I jumped for it, and I got shortlisted. And actually, these trials are more like campouts, So they would test our physical, mental abilities, so on and so forth. Go trekking, then document us the whole way. So after that, I got shortlisted. Then I got selected. Then I was on a sponsored trip at 18 years old to the Himalayas.
Wow.
So,
That is like a huge chunk of a huge story shows. But I'm really interested about the first time you saw the Himalayas, right?
Yeah.
So you wake up early in the morning or something?
So I usually wake up very early. I was a bookworm actually when I was a kid.
6 o'clock in the morning, wow.
6 was nothing. It was 5:30. I would wake up, but it was too early and too dark. So by the time the sun is up, I would study. It wasn't just school books. It was just any other book. I would sit and study. So yeah. So that's how the view of the Himalayas. And I found out later on that actually those were the Arunachali Himalayas. After Google Earth and Google Map came to to existence. So I finally found out those were the Arunachali Himalayas, and I was quite captivated.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you saw that, I think it really stirred something in you to really try. I mean, if it was me seeing the mountains, I'd be like, okay, it's just a mountain, right? But why is it like when you saw it was the Himalayas? I think the first time you saw it was really interesting as well.
Yes.
So it really must have kept into you a certain kind of quality, right? So what kind of quality did you like see in it? Like once you see that, it's like, damn, look at the mountain.
I think it was just sheer beauty.
Mm.
Just the rocks, I've never seen anything like those before, and they looked like clouds in the sky, and they were just, I knew they were very high and very difficult probably to climb. So that was like a challenge for me, when I was very young, and I was like, one day I should reach those mountains. I told myself, like, I have to reach those mountains one day.
You being a small kid, like you're 6 years old, having that kind. We at 6, we would like, be like.
No, I was way into my 6, 7, 8, 9, I think those years. Yeah, but I was quite young, yes.
You were very you were driven to go for that. So when you were young, you said you always wake up and read books. What kind of books do you listen like read?
Travel books, a lot of magazines and.
So the travel books really helped you to maybe go to that.
Yes. And that's how I took up geography as my honors also. So it was all of the travel books that my father bought. And I watched a lot of National Geographic and Discovery. And I remember at one point of time, the teacher asked in the classroom, he's like, what are your favorite channels on TV? And a lot of the other kids were like, oh, Cartoon Network, oh, Nickelodeon, oh, Pogo. And I went, National Geographic and Discovery. And the teacher was like, wow, that's a very good channel to watch. Listen, children, listen to her. You should watch those channels. I was like, okay. But for me, it was just, it was fascination about nature, about everything, about the beauty of nature that I loved watching those channels.
It's more, I think that initial spark came from those travel books,
Yes.
and as well as the channels that you're watching.
Yeah.
But we have lots of subjects on it, political science, everything, But geography, such a fascinating subject as a whole. Why geography though? Seriously.
Geography, because I think it studied the earth, and that's what I like to do.
Mhm.
It had, physical geography, human geography, and all of that. So my favorite was physical geography because it studied the earth. So that's why I chose it actually. And I thought, geography would probably help me in my travels also. So yes, to some point it did. So that's why I chose the subject.
So physical geography is totally about the physicality.
Yeah, yes, about the physical
Topography.
features of the earth. Yes.
Okay. So geography tends to be a very fascinating subject for me. I don't know much about geography because I'm a political science student myself. So, but one thing about geography that really really resonates with me is that once I think about geography, it's always about nature or countries. So you being a person who right from the time when you were young, going back and looking at all that, I think this really helped you to really like get proper knowledge of you going to geography, right? So and especially you learning about your teacher telling you that you watch National Nat Geo and all these other. But yeah, what before you get to that, what is your favorite like series or what's your favorite? What's your like your go-to? Nowadays, Man was Swine that time.
Gosh. That was my favorite series.
Seriously.
I had a big crush on Bear Grylls. So
Bear
I
Grylls.
wanted to be like Bear Grylls.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, that was my favorite series. But actually, okay, if you're talking about geography, it was not really the subject that I really wanted to do. It was more of geology.
Okay.
But I sucked at maths.
Okay.
So I didn't want to take science.
Okay.
So I ended up with geography. I was like, okay, somehow, So I took up geography. So, but when it came to, my favorite series on TV, it has to be Man vs. Wild and Planet Earth as well. Planet Earth and, let me think of. I think probably those, that I can remember of right now. Yeah.
It's this Man vs. Wild is such a nostalgic character, right?
Yes.
Everybody
It's
knows
like
it.
action hero,
Especially for you.
Yes.
So, if you had the chance to meet like one of your biggest idols, if it's Bear Grylls, man. I mean, if it was me, I would be shaking because even I don't like do what he does, but he's like such an amazing person. But geography and I think Man vs. Wild, I think it does play a small part, like small connection here and there. So I think it really propelled you to go for a certain subject, right? Okay, so the thing that really resonates with me about your starting off this journey of yours to climb Mount Everest is that it's a more or less a man's sport, right? We know that it's a man's sport. We stereotype, okay, like, the first Mount Everest were two men and all that stuff. But you broke the norm for society. So what is your, how the pressure in life?
Adventure sports was seen as this male-dominated world, But I think more and more women are getting into it. And I think, I don't know how long ago though, but of course, at one point of time, it was a man's sport. But you realize that women also can do it and they can do it at their own pace, So I don't think, at first everything starts as this male-dominated this, male-dominated that. But until women try it and they know, okay, it doesn't have to be called a male-dominated sport. Women can actually also do it. So for me, I don't really like to differentiate that, a man is doing this, a woman is doing that, so she has to get more of this, he has to get more of that. For me, there's no disparity when it comes to outdoor sports or nature as such, because nature belongs to everyone, it does not only belong to man, So for me, there's no such disparity. When I go climbing with a group of men or when I go on expeditions with a group of men, I don't think of myself as, I'm female, I should be getting this kind of attention, that kind. No, we're all equal, we help each other out, we're a team. There's no disparity of being a man or a woman, so we're a team, so that's all, yeah.
I think that's one of the things that always makes me wonder about your kind of thing, because it's such like, society makes these very stupid norms where we say that, it belongs to a male-dominated society, male-dominated sport, but you broke it. But I think it comes with the cost as well. I think it comes with the pressures and with all the people telling you, what are you doing, right? Mm-hmm. Can you talk about a little bit about how did you overcome all that, those negative comments that come to you?
I never really had such negative comments. Of course, I have faced some misogynistic comments. I have. I wouldn't say I'm totally free of such comments, because I'm after all, still living here, and not everybody's as open-minded. So, yes, it does happen to me. But how I overcome them is just my family, my family and my friends. My father, especially my parents, they've been very supportive of me. They don't actually let such comments or such things, people telling me that you can't do this, you can't do that. Because a woman, stick to just playing instruments, stick to, going shopping and beautifying yourself. Of course, I still do all of that. But this is what I love to do also, So my parents have always encouraged me. They never said, you're a woman, you should slow yourself down. They said, just go with it. Just go ahead. What you want to do, just go with it. Even when it came to decisions in life or studies and so on and so forth, they were like, just do whatever you want. You learn everything. They'll give you a few guidelines and all that. But in the end, it's just the constant support that I have from my friends and my family that has kept me going. So when it came to misogynistic comments, I do get them, like I said. But I don't really get angry because I understand where some people are coming from. Not everybody's as open-minded. So that way I handle things in a diplomatic way, in a nice way, because you don't always have to be so. I'm a woman, I should roar. I'm not like that. Personally, I just. I tell them, see, this is also possible if I do it, and you can also do it. Let's do it together. It's teamwork.
True.
So it's something like that for me. So yeah.
I think you gave a very good point there. See, if you look like, this is such a headline everywhere. Will Smith, he wasn't able to control his emotions at all, right? It's such a small group, but you, despite the fact like being more directed towards your gender and all that, yet you were able to dissolve the whole diplomatic. In a more diplomatic way. That's very impressive. Yeah, but talking about your parents, right? I think they were being so supportive. So, what about your dad? Your dad tends to be a very important part of your life, and I see a lot of pictures of you and your dad, and especially the uncanny resemblance that you and him, and especially your grandmother looks exactly like you. And I saw the pictures in Instagram. Okay, tell me about your dad. How did he play a very important role in you encouraging to do these particular outdoorsy sports and to do many things and till date?
So actually, being outdoorsy runs in the family, I would say. My grandmother, my grandfather, my great-grandmother, my great-grandfather were very outdoorsy people. They traveled a lot in those days. My grandfather was a doctor and a teacher, so he traveled all over Himalaya to teach and, so my family was very much into the outdoors. So I think it's sort of genetic, I guess, in that way. So even my father is a hiker himself. He hikes, he travels a lot. So that's how I got it, from them. And hence, like I said, they were always encouraging because they understood. They did it themselves when they were younger. So they gave me the freedom to do it also. So, and my father's always been supportive of me because when I was a little girl, I always wanted to go everywhere, but I couldn't do it alone, So he would drive me everywhere. He would go hiking with me. He would go do all kinds of sports with me, water sports and so on and so forth. So he was always there, And being the only daughter, he has no choice, I guess. And sometimes he wonders, is this a son or a daughter? Yeah, he's confused, But yeah, he's always been very supportive that way.
What are the things, what are the most predominant story about your dad? Like climbing, you said hiking, right? Do you have any stories about him that?
Yeah, so the first time we went hiking, I live in Malki. I still remember him.
So you hike in Malki?
Yeah. So I lived in Malki. So Upper Shillong Peak, the highest peak in Meghalaya, is just up there, right? So one day he was like, let's just go on a trek, let's go up there. And I was quite little, I think, I just 5 or 6 of those early years, So we went hiking. Remember, he carried me across the stream and we went up walking. And when we reached there, we were so happy. We had the old film cameras and took a picture. Yes. So that was quite memorable. It was me, my dad, a few cousins and friends and a few uncles. And that was the first hike that I remember within the first trek that we did. So yeah, from then onwards, he just knew that, I was quite an outdoorsy girl. And when my childhood as well was very, very active. I never stayed indoors. My parents could never keep me indoors. I was always outdoors, rain or sunshine. I got sick in the rain. I got, all of that. So I sort of toughened up as well as a girl, sort of toughened up. And that's how also I became they would call me Khunka Mariam, which means child of Mother Nature. So yeah, so dad was always, he just let me be free, So he lets me play outdoors. He's not one of those, my dad, especially my mom as well, they're not very strict parents, So
in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. They always let me be myself, so hence, yeah.
When you climbed, I think, Shillong Peak is a very generic thing. It's Shillong Peak, right?
Yeah.
But that time must be very treacherous though.
Like walking through the jungle, yes, from
Yeah.
Malki up to Lofi. It was quite a, like a forest then. So, I mean, for me as a little girl, it felt like, ooh, it's a big trek,
It's huge, like huge trees.
It's a starting point, for my whole journey.
But the flora and fauna during that time must be like quite different.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So when you climbed, like since it's your first climb, let's say it's your first climb, when you climbed that, right, was it like very hard on your body to keep up with your dad? Because is he like helping you walk? Or he's like, you gotta toughen up and walk along with me or something like that? Is it?
A bit of both,
Okay.
So I don't remember much of it anymore. I just remember him carrying me through the stream because I couldn't cross it. I was too little. It was just, I remembered him and a few of my cousins. He had to stand, one leg on the other bank, the other way, and all of us, across the stream. Yeah. So I just remember that actually, and I think in those days, like you said, the vegetation was a lot thicker. And it was more beautiful and cleaner also. And it was less crowded, that's why it felt like a trek, in those days. It felt like a real jungle trek. But nowadays, you can easily drive up there and
we have even paths now because of so many people walking. So, but talking about environment, right? Do you see through the lens of you being in geography and you love the environment and nature as well? And I had this conversation with Yan. Oh yeah, big shout out to Yan. Thank you for bringing my name. So if you're watching this, dedicate to you. So so we were having this conversation with Yan and he started all of this. And his main objective was to bring nature and bring pollution-free society. So are you a big advocate of being against deforestation and environmental causes? Are you since you're into all this, right? So what is your take on it and what's your take on pollution as a whole, especially in our state?
My take from it. Well, I do realize nowadays that people have become really detached from nature, The connection is not there at all anymore. And especially the ones living in the city, they don't really see how Mother Nature works. So people take it for granted, People take everything for granted. Whereas if we go to the villages and in the jungles and we see people living over there and you see how they harmonize with nature, how they depend on nature for every single thing, from water to food to even the weather and everything, So that's what I've realized in the cities, people have become so detached. So my take on it is that, how I become attached to it is that I do outdoor sports. And through outdoor sports, you connect to nature and you play with nature. You know how it works, and you tend to, you respect it more. You understand how small you are and how big nature is, and you don't take it for granted that way. And that's what I really want to. What do I say? Sort of show an example to people that if you want to be connected to nature, outdoor sports is another way. There's you get out there. You don't just stay in your house and you go to your buildings, your offices, your malls, and all that, and you see nothing over there, absolutely nothing. And when the thunder strikes, you get scared, you get scared. So but when you're out there in nature, you're doing your thing over there. Be it anything, could be just gardening or planting a tree, anything like that, or sports, or so people should become connected to nature that way, so that you don't take it for granted. So
I think one of the things that really always resonate with me is that you have gone out, you are climbing and all that, and I think you must have met lots of native people from different villages. And what is their prime concern when it comes to this modern society and the encroachment into natural habitat? Have you ever discussed the encroachment of urbanization and all that, pollution and
what is their take on that?
Take on it. I think you must have met some of them. You must have discussed about. Have you ever?
They're very innocent to it, I should say. They don't know anything that's going on. Yeah. They have no idea what's going on in Shillong, especially if I go to these interior villages in the West Khasi Hills and the Junkie Hills, where there are actually no roads to go there as well. So you have to walk there for days and you have to camp there. They have no idea. They're very, very innocent to a lot of things. They live in their, little farms. They rear their poultry, their cattle and all of that. But they have absolutely no idea of what is actually happening in Shillong. So some of them are very innocent and But some of them do understand. Some of them travel to Shillong. They see what it's like in the city, and they come back. They were like, oh, it's difficult being out there. It's not so simple. It's very difficult. Everything is so very expensive. Whereas in the village, we live off the land. You don't have to pay for a lot of things. We all have our farms and all that. So that's what that's what I see in them. The innocence. And hence sometimes when we go for expeditions and we meet people like them, they teach us a lot because even we're not familiar to living with nature anymore. We're so dependent on technology. We're so dependent on everything. So that's what I like about going on expeditions as well. Is you meet these villages, you meet these natives from these communities, and they teach you a lot. So, for example, once I was on an expedition, a gaming expedition in Jaita Hills, and was walking through the jungle with one of the locals. His name is Lal. And so I was just talking to him about, sicknesses and diseases and so on and so forth. He was like, oh, for that disease, we have a plant right over there. And for that disease, we have another plant right over there. And I was like, the jungle so well, And he's like, yes, because we're so dependent on it. Every single thing from a mother giving birth to a child to somebody who's sick with blood pressure or somebody who has diabetes or something like that, They're so dependent on the flora of the jungles over there that that they know it so well, every single leaf, whereas we wouldn't have such a knowledge unless you study botany. Even if you study botany, you need to go to the jungles to know that, right? So that's what I learned. I learned a lot from them actually. Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've always like you said, the innocence is one of the things that it's really makes it the nature, and it helps to preserve actually the innocence. At least one thing, in the innocence was nature and towards urbanization, like you said. It's one of the things that I think they're still there and they're still looming large.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that really plays a very important role where I think a certain kind of awareness should also be there where pollution is coming. No doubt about it with people who wants to, with expansion of population, right, and urbanization. It's really one of those things where I think it's sad, but it's a sad reality, right? That's how we paint it. But the good part about it is that when you're talking about villagers, right, and you're talking about meeting them, I always see this one video where the Bear Grylls meet these guys from Amazon, and he looks like he's like the man who knows everything, but in front of him he's like he looks so lost,
Yes,
like,
yes.
Yeah, you can do that. Like you just go and just eat and you got fish.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's really the thing. What about getting back to disease and all that? How did they don't have any diseases in them since they live out there?
Well, I wouldn't say they don't have they do, but not as much as what we have over here, They have very less stress and depression and all mental health and all that. They have very less of that because their life is a lot more stress-free in a way that, I won't say they don't face difficulties, they do, but it's not to the point where what we have, in this world of pressure nowadays. So they're very stress-free, that's one thing. And that's what I realized from the villages is that they're so connected with nature. They're so dependent on nature of everything that they realize that they don't take things for granted and become more grateful. They become more grateful to a lot of things around them because for them just to get a bucket of water, they have to walk miles just to pick it up. But for us, we open a tap, right? So we've taken water for granted. Whereas for them, just to get shelter, they need trees to sit, when they're plowing their fields. For us, we don't need that. We don't know what's the benefit of a tree also, So that's what I learned from them. It's just the connection to nature and how, that we people in cities have taken nature for granted so much. Whereas everything that we do comes from nature. And I do get a lot of questions like, why do you want to go out there? It's just a pile of rocks. It's just the jungle. It's not just, it's everything that you are right now. It's because of nature, And that's how I really connect to people in the villages, and I have a lot of friends over there because we just have that same connection, So yeah.
Yeah, I think that curiosity is something that we, as people of the modern society, we lost that curiosity towards nature, right? Because of technology and all that. But speaking of technology, though, I think you being on these expedition trips and we always need to make good use of technology. So how has technology helped you though in your findings and your goings and your climbing and all that? How did
Yeah,
it
technology is not all bad if you know how to use it. So yeah, so technology in a way, when we go caving, we map caves as well. So caving is not only about the sport of going in caves; it's actually like surveying the whole cave system and mapping it and putting it into these digital maps. So people can access it later. So that's how technology is happening. We have these instruments, these devices called a PDA, which is like a small computer.
So like,
And we have
surveys the whole thing or something like that?
Yeah. So we have a disto, which we use. These are the things that we use in caving for mapping of caves. We have a disto, which is like a laser measurement.
Okay.
So that, and we have sat phones up in the mountains. We have all of that. So technology does help us in a lot of ways because, as you know, when we get lost in the jungle, we get lost up in the woods. We need a sat phone. We need technology at some point. So that's one way that it's helped us. So yeah.
It really helped you a lot, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of caves though, man, those caves are scary as hell. I mean, just the sheer like darkness, and you can see like, I don't know what lies inside and all that, you always imagine maybe like a giant or something might be living inside, but that's just all myth. But tell me about like the most scariest, like, okay, the longest trek that you did, the longest like, like going to the cave and surveying all that. What are like the things that goes through your mind? It's like, it is some matter of like, okay, I'm going to the cave, finish. There must be like, I think you must be scared of certain things as well, right? For me, I love going
yes.
I'm scared as hell to go to a cave. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, I've been to a few caves since I was young, but not actual caving. I've just been to show caves. So I actually started caving seriously from 2019.
Okay.
That's when I got invited into one of the expeditions of caving the Abode of the Clouds. So this is an international project. It's collaboration of many people from the UK, Europe as well, and India.
The organizations have different kinds of
Yeah. So MAA from Meghalaya and Caving the Abode of the Clouds from Europe. And
Okay.
yeah, you have all the international cavers coming in to hold these annual expeditions every year, where we survey and map the caves over here and do a lot of research as well. So I mean, caves never really scared me. Instead, they fascinated me. And how I got into it, I was very much into climbing, as you know. Mountains are my first love, but in Meghalaya we don't have them, and it's a bit difficult for me to go climbing every year as well because it's quite expensive.
True.
And I need to save a lot of money for that, and traveling back and forth, especially during the pandemic, was just impossible. Yeah. So that's how I wanted to find a sport actually to do in Meghalaya as well. So when in those years, like Meghalaya was going through this golden era of discovering all the outdoor sports and all that.
17 onwards.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 16. No, 14, 16 onwards. Actually before I got into caving, I was into whitewater pack rafting. But then I got into caving 2019, and so the first time I actually went for serious caving, was in the Jayanta Hills on the expedition. That's usually held every Feb.
How deep did you go inside though?
So it was actually one of the worst caves. Why? Because it was 4 kilometers of belly crawling. This small, and and you had to crawl the whole 4 kilometers in, and then survey the whole cave, then come out 4 kilometers, so 8 kilometers of crawling. So when I came back from there, it was covered in mud, Then I got back to the expedition, and one of the expedition leaders, Thomas, was asking me, so did you like it? I was like, oh, I loved it, It's like, that makes you a caver, because if we send somebody like that into a cave like that, and they come back, they totally hate it, and not do it again. But I loved it. It was thrilling at first. It was slightly scary because I'm so used to seeing these bigger caves, the show caves especially. So the first time I got there, it was this, slightly bigger entrance, and they got tinier and tinier and tinier. And there were 4 or 5 of us, mapping it. So we had to climb on top of each other and just somehow, because we had to measure the cave, and all of that. But it was so thrilling. I was sweating from head to toe. I was sweating and I was completely tired. At some points during the survey, I fell asleep. So it was
midway
thrilling.
you fell asleep.
Yeah, midway I fell asleep because
Wow.
while doing the survey, we usually have to do sketches as well, sketch of the passage, just to because we have to put it on the map, right? So yeah, I would fall asleep during the surveys and all that, and my friends would wake me up. I was just too tired, and I remember then I think most of them were men. It was only me. So I was quite new to it. They were like, "It's okay, Naomi. Are you tired? It'll be all right. It's coming to an end." So I'm like, No. I like it. Just take your time. But it was so much fun to be with all these, let's say, veteran cavers. They're much older than me. They're in their 60s. So they taught me a lot during the whole trip and whole expedition. And yeah, I mean, people always see caves as these very monstrous places. Even if you go to the villages, they know of a cave. In fact, the ones who show you to the way to the caves are the villagers. But at the most, they'll enter like just a few meters, and they'll come back. They're like, no, we don't want to go. We don't want to go in there. There might be spirits or ghosts or demons, And when they see us go in, they're like, they see a Khasi woman going, They're very used to seeing European women going in and all that. When they see a Khasi woman, when I come back, they come back to me with a lot of questions. So, what did you see in there? What was in there? Did you see anything? Like, really funny questions. Did you, yeah. So at one point of time, there was a villager who also said, I made sure you guys came out just to make sure you weren't talking to the devil, So
that's where people meet. I don't know.
So that's when, I explained a lot to them. I went in as a Khasi, as a local woman. They listened to you. I told them, there's nothing monstrous about a cave. And I took some pictures of the formations, of the stalactites and stalagmites that we see in the cave, of the cave lives, the fishes, the frogs, the centipedes, all of that, I took pictures and I showed it to them. I was like, see, this is what a cave looks like. So there's nothing to be scared about. It's just rocks, inside and different formations. And there's so many things that, a cave is, actually the cave system of the world is the most unexplored part,
Sure.
So hence that's, but like I said, caves would scare people because they're all dark and damp and scary. But once you get into it, especially if you get used to caving, stepping to the unknown is like the most, thrilling thing to do because you don't know what's waiting for you. It's complete darkness. So you would keep on going and there's darkness, but you come across chamber and then a crawl and then a chamber after chamber, and there's just beauty every time, with the formations and all that. So yeah, that's how, I love caving in Meghalaya because, and as well, Meghalaya has one of the best caves in the world. The world's deepest sandstone cave is in Meghalaya. India's largest cave is in Meghalaya. 90% of the caves in India is in Meghalaya. So why not explore them? It's in your backyard.
Very true.
Yeah.
The thing is that really fascinated me about caves is that you said 4 kilometers of this, that's small.
Oh, I won't exactly say, but let's say my voice. It's like under a chair or something like that, under a stool, yeah.
How did you feel? Like the claustrophobic? I mean, I'll be very I'll be like panting. How did you manage all that? It's a mind game, definitely a mind game. So how did you overcome that? That's one thing that really fascinated me about you going to these small passages, or shall we say crevices that you go to.
Yes.
So how did you battle when you walk through and when you're inside? Did you have any anxiety or that scared feeling?
I think when it comes to all outdoor sports, mental game is quite a big game. It's not only how physically fit you are, you should be mentally fit. You should be really mentally fit. And well, talking about being scared, me alone, I don't get scared. Okay, I don't get scared, especially if it's nature and so on. I didn't get scared at all. I was more fascinated instead to know what's there. It's I think that spirit of exploration that gets into me. Sometimes my friends tell me that when you're in your element, when I'm outdoors, I forget everything, and that's true. I really forget fear. I leave everything aside. I just forget everything, and there's just me and that mountain, or me in that cave, and that's it. So it's quite a mind game, though. Claustrophobic people would not be able to cave because if you're claustrophobic, it's just, you forget it, because caving is either you love it or you hate it. So claustrophobic people, not really possible, I think. But if you train your mind, because everything is about training the mind, right? Every fear, every anxiety, every, So if you train your mind though, you would be able to start off with big caves, then you go to the smaller ones, then you go to the vertical caves, and yeah. But my favorite part about caves are the vertical caves actually.
The verticals like this,
The one
right?
with the ropes,
Yeah, okay,
where
okay.
we have to rig ropes to go down.
Mhm.
And
I
the
think
deepest we found in Meghalaya was in the
Karmapa,
recent.
right? Is it?
No.
So,
The deepest we found in Meghalaya was in 2000. The newest one, 2020.
okay.
It was about 140 meters straight, like a shaft.
Okay.
So it was just one big deep.
Where's this place
vertical cave
located though?
in Jaita Hills.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so we found that in 2020.
Mhm.
And yeah, those are one of my favorite caves, the vertical caves, because there's so much going on when you do a vertical cave. There's
Okay.
darkness, you're hanging on ropes, you're only depending on your headlamp, you see nothing, but you also know there's this abyss beneath you that you don't know of.
Yeah.
So it just offers you such a thrill, such that feeling that I cannot really explain,
Yeah.
but it's become sort of like addictive to me in a way.
The adrenaline.
Yes, yeah, it's become so addictive that I love doing it. So uncomfortable things make me comfortable in situations like that.
It's very paradoxical, but it works. So
Yes.
it's very cool. Man, like if you talk about like vertical climbs, right, or descent or climb or whatever, maybe I always imagine those sci-fi movies when you go down, you suddenly see these alien eggs and something that
Yes.
jump on your face or something. Always a lot of that. But let's talk about like like you said, mentors, right?
Mhm.
So who have you like worked with that really made you more comfortable in caving and more or less like feel that he has taught a lot about you? I think it's a good shout out for him too if he's watching this. He'll be watching it for
Yes. So I was introduced to caving by Thomas Abens. He is a Swiss caver.
sure. Okay.
He's been to Meghalaya for the past 20 plus years now. So even before I was born, they were already here.
Wow. Okay.
They've been caving in Meghalaya for that many years.
Mhm.
And they've been holding annual expeditions since 1995, if I'm not mistaken. So they first got to Meghalaya in the Garo
I
Hills.
was born in India.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they first got to Meghalaya in the Garo Hills, Siju Caves.
Okay.
But after that, they shifted to the East Khasi Hills. So with some caves in the East Khasi Hills, and they went to Jaintia Hills. So I think caving the Boat of the Clouds has been there for almost 20 years now, or 20 plus years. So Thomas is the one. He's one of the expedition. He used to be one of the expedition leaders. Now he's retired. So he introduced me to caving in 2019.
He's still active. But
Yeah, he's still active, but he's retired from
Okay.
the expedition. Now he just does small trips,
Okay.
with us locals over here. So so he introduced me to it. One day he gives me a call. Actually, he saw my post on Instagram with me in the mountains saying, there's a post saying that I miss the mountains. And he's like, if you miss the mountains, why not try caving? And I said, sure. Then he inboxed me and I inboxed him. Then we met up. They invited me. He said, why don't you join our expeditions and all that, since, you seem quite active in sports and all that. So sure. Then he introduced me to it and we started off with photographs and all of that. And I was just like completely captivated and mesmerized by the caves over here. I mean, that was a part of my land that I didn't know of, And when he showed it to me, I was like, wow, why didn't I know earlier? Yes. Like, why didn't I know it earlier? But I was so grateful to him, because he introduced him to the whole thing. He brought teams of cavers from Europe who trained me and a group of other friends of mine. And they trained us with all the ropes and giving techniques and methods of surveying and so on and so forth, So that's how I got into it actually.
Okay.
So Thomas is the one.
man.
Yes,
The man
is
with
the
the
man.
plan.
Yes.
Shout out to Thomas.
Yes.
So I think he must have taught you not just that, but the techniques of how to like go through these caves and how to navigate, and I think more or less like very man versus wild kind of thing, So okay, to us a layman, can you just explain a bit of the techniques like that he teach you, like because he must have taught you some kind of practical things how to maneuver, or I know it sounds very stupid because we have never been to a cave. Check this for me.
I can take you there.
Yeah, you can take me there. You can take all of us here.
Yeah.
So, can you just discuss about like the techniques of how did he teach you, if it's okay with you? Like one of the most like basic things.
Well, first and foremost, you never go into a cave alone. That's one thing. The minimum would be 3 people, and you always inform anybody who's who's there that you go into a cave, that we should be back by this and this time. If we're not back by this time, then something is wrong and you have to come and get us. So that is one rule. You always inform people before you go into a cave. And then when you get into the cave, that's when, everything starts. So you always look around, you be very observant, always look around, look at that rock, look at that boulder, look at everything, so that you memorize what it looks like in a cave, because you can easily get lost in a cave. Because when you're in the dark, everything looks the same, right? So you always have to keep going forward, but also memorize. If there's a side passage or this passage or that passage, always stick to one passage. And always, when you're going for the first time, stick to one passage and always memorize what's around you. And the rest of it is just, have fun, I guess.
Yeah, have fun, right?
yeah. I mean, it's just that you stay safe, you let people know that you're caving.
Okay.
And when you're in the cave, if you're a caver, you're not scared of the cave, then you'll find your way out. Of course, you'll get lost. I'm not saying you won't get lost, especially if you go 2 or 3 kilometers into it. When you come back, you will get lost at some places because they are chokes, or what we call them, like, rocks. And you have to climb through these rocks to find your way through the next chamber and all that. So you will get lost in a cave. That's all right, but it's just that if you have a map of the cave in your hand, it's a lot helpful. If you don't, you should just know the cave very well. Memorize the cave, So yeah.
How many hours does it take you to reach to, like, from point A to point B? Just say, like, it wouldn't be like, how many hours? Like, I think it might be the whole day, right?
Yeah, it depends on how long the cave is. Certain caves require you to stay inside as well, because it takes you the whole day actually to survey it.
Wow.
Takes you the whole day. So you really if they're very big caves, then you stay inside them. If they're not, you go a few kilometers, you survey it, then you come back to base camp and go by the next day, because when you survey, you go point by point by point. It takes time, right? Because you have to survey each and every chamber, each and every point. Whereas if you've surveyed this part already and the rest of it, still there, you just skip all of this part which has been surveyed and you go to the next chamber and then you start surveying. So it takes you the whole day usually. Very tiring.
Coming and going.
Yeah, coming and going. So yeah, that's how it is.
The thing that really fascinates me is that once you go in these, right, I think oxygen plays a very important role, doesn't it? How, like, we always said the oxygen capacity in a cave, it's like so less when it comes to, is it true about that whole thing, or is it a myth?
I wouldn't say there's no oxygen at all, that you need oxygen cylinders and all that. There is oxygen, because after all, we're beneath the earth. There's plenty of oxygen, in the soil and all that. You don't need oxygen cylinders. You have air, you can still breathe, unless you're claustrophobic.
Okay.
Claustrophobic, but it's not because of the air, it's because of your mind, right? So yeah, there's no such thing as you have to go in with an oxygen cylinder, unless you're going cave diving.
Yeah.
Then you need an oxygen cylinder, because why? In the water, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think that's the thing that really fascinates me about caving, is that the mental game, the amount of maneuvering, but the most important thing, I think, having a good leader, right? I think you were blessed to have a Thomasism with you. So how does a leader plays a very important role in caving? Because I know we've been talking about caving, but I think the leader needs to be so knowledgeable in what he does, right? So I think a good leader needs to be a very, very good leader. What do you think about being a leader? Like, will you ever try, maybe one day if we do go, we follow you, what is like the thing that makes you feel secure when you look at Thomas and being a leader, right? Because it's not like being a leader, like metaphorically speaking, go there, go this, right? But need to be an all-round, holistic kind of leader, right? So can you give me a definition about how a leader should be?
If you go on cave trips, then you obviously, especially if you're a first timer and not a caver, then you should go with somebody who knows the cave very well. A leader has to know the cave very well. He has to have the map of the cave inside his head, the back of his head. So he has to know the cave very well, basically. But if you're going on expeditions, then everybody is a leader.
Okay.
You have to find your way, you have to manage yourself in the cave, because it's an expedition, which means stepping a lot into the unknown, right? So you are your own leader, in that way. But when it comes to caving trips and all that, if you want to go with a group of friends or something, then you need to find somebody who knows the cave very well, with equipment as well. You need your headlamps, you need your helmets, you need your caving suits. You can't just go in with what people do over here, slippers and and a mobile phone torch, and when that torch dies off, then you're dead. You're basically dead inside a cave, because who will find you and how will you find your way back? And especially if you've not told anybody that you've gone inside a cave. So that's one thing. You need to have the equipment, you need to have a good leader. So yeah, because at one point of time, I remember there were a few kids going about Krempuri. Krempuri is the longest sandstone cave in the world, but it's actually a maze cave,
Okay.
So it's like a labyrinth, like a maze cave. And we had expeditions then. They were trying to get a few more meters of Krempuri. So some cavers went in and they came back like, you know what, today we found a bunch of kids going around in the same circle, they couldn't find their way back until they found us. They're like, oh, I was so glad to find you. And then they showed them the way out.
Wow.
And when they showed them the way out, they're like, are you fine out? The kids were like, okay, yeah, we're fine, we can go. And when the cavers came back to that same point, they were still stuck over there.
Damn. So they got stuck there,
yeah,
again they got stuck again.
Yeah, because it's a maze cave. You know what a maze is like, right?
Yeah.
You don't know where everywhere you turn, it's like a corner
labyrinth,
every time. Yeah, labyrinth. So they, something like that, which is quite risky, and they were just holding mobile phones with their torches, So that is very extremely risky. That some people over here don't understand that as yet.
Yeah.
So if we go into a cave, we need to have the equipment for it. You can't just go like that. Yeah.
I remember this one joke that I don't know, I saw a series or something that these guys were like going into some forest or something and saying, you have all the equipments, yeah, I have my phone with me. But suddenly like you look at his phone, his battery is dead. It's like,
exactly.
that kind of thing. And it's really funny when we're coming to coming apart. I mean, if you think about like all these people using these very, not being equipped with proper equipment, proper knowledge, proper comprehension of the whole cave system, it's one thing, right? And don't do that, guys, please.
Because it's in the dark after all, If it's outside in the jungle, you can still find your way somehow. But in caves, you just don't mess around with caves. That's one thing,
That's true.
So you really are humbled when you go inside the cave and okay.
You finally feel like nature's bigger than you, right?
Yes, exactly, yes.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked you. How do you feel like your spiritual connection towards nature? I think you have that. I think you've got to have that before you go to any place, right?
Yes.
You feel like Mother Nature is one of the things that we do underestimate sometimes. But why it humbles you when you go to these big events, or maybe not big events, but big expeditions?
I'm very spiritual, yes, when it comes to Mother Nature. I'm very connected to it ever since I was a child. For me, nature is church, basically. I can sit in a church where I can't concentrate, but I can sit in nature and concentrate very well. So that is my church, and it's become my medicine. Like I said earlier, I need it. I need to go out. I need to be outdoors. So every weekend, if I'm working the whole week, every weekend I have to make sure I go hiking or I go caving or I go paddling. Because if I don't do it,
Feel disconnected.
Yeah, I feel disconnected, and I just feel like I feel so dull, and I don't feel myself. So I've made it a custom sort of to go outdoors every weekend, just to replenish myself, just to refresh my brain so I can be better the whole week.
Talks of the modern world.
Yes. Like how people go to church every Sunday, they need that spiritual connection. I go outdoors every weekend. Yeah.
Like when you have that spiritual connection, can you just explain to me one expedition where you were walking and suddenly we all know that you go in nature. Like for me, firstly, if I go out and like, for example, I'll tell you this very funny example where I know Shillong very well, not know Shillong, but I have seen Edmonds and all that. Then I went to I think that horticulture up there where they sell flowers. So suddenly, I've never been to this part of the place before, right? So explain to me a small section where you know nature very well and you feel, okay, nature, I know, I'm accustomed to it. But once you reach a particular point, you look to be like, oh man, like you feel so at awe with what you are surrounded with. So can you explain kind of like that kind of experience,
It happens to me when I go to the Himalayas, actually. That happens to me. So every time I see the Himalayas right in front of me, there's these huge tall towers of mountains, that touch the clouds. You just can't imagine how small you are, and at that point of time, you just feel extremely small that even all your problems fade away. That, nature makes you feel so small that what is your problem when nature is this big, So it makes me feel that way. It humbles me in a way, and I forget all my troubles. I forget all of I just forget everything. And it's just, I'm in awe to the point where I'm in tears sometimes,
I think this really helps you to overcome these human need problems that we have in our head, right?
Yes.
Once you reach that point, wow.
Yes, a lot of us while hiking as well, because when you're hiking up the Himalayas, it takes a toll on your body. The terrain is so difficult, the air is so thin. So everybody suffers, everybody complains, but the moment they reach up, they're up a mountain and they look down and they see all that there is, they just go, oh, wow, this feels like the biggest achievement soulfully for them, spiritually and soulfully. So that's like another addiction, that's why people who go to the Himalayas keep on wanting to go there. They keep on wanting to climb it because they get that feeling that mountain gives them. So it's quite a psychological thing.
I think it's spiritual, psychological. I mean, it's everything, man.
It's just everything. It's just everything about nature and the culture of the people over there, and just all of that. That makes you feel that sometimes we're so self-absorbed in a way. It's all about ourselves and our problems, and my problem is so big. When you go up in the Himalayas and you see people living over there, there's no water, there's no light, so you're like, oh crap, what am I complaining for when these people live like this?
True.
So it, like I said, nature just humbles you in every way.
I think once you even reach that point, right? Like you and this will be a good segue to the part where you talk about Himalayas, but I think when you reach that point, you just see it's like total silence among all the complaint, like you said, is already gone, and you're like, wow.
Yeah.
And it's just like you see it like it's so quiet and it's so mesmerizing as well, and it's such like kind of like a trip to Mecca kind of thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that, right? So Himalayas is one thing that I have seen like a lot. You have gone to many places. For example, you have gone to Coachella, you have gone to Stock Hungary. Let's talk about how did you prepare yourself for these events, right? These are not, I cannot just, some people, they always think that I as well. I thought about that. I was like, I can climb Mount Everest in one day itself, right? But what about the preparation to go to this? It takes a lot of time, right?
Expeditions, they take a lot. Sometimes you prepare a year ahead of you. Usually we do that for caving or climbing, a year ahead of you, especially when it comes to a lot of the materialistic things that we'll need out there, actually, tents and food and supplies and so on and so forth. There's a lot of preparation for that. A lot of money goes into it also.
How much does it cost, like total, like a proper expedition, shall we say, from food to equipment to proper guides?
It depends where you are, actually. There are certain peaks that are expensive. There are certain peaks that are not so expensive. So it all depends. If you're doing a self-sufficient trip, that means you take everything, you carry your own load.
Okay.
You don't hire a porter, you don't hire a yak or an animal or something like that to carry your stuff. Then it's a lot cheaper. Okay, but otherwise, if you have all of these luxuries with you, then it'll cost you more. I mean, that you will have to check it yourself on the internet, because they're different, different companies have different ratings and all that. So sometimes I like to do some things by myself. So I usually carry my own luggage, my own load. So that usually would cost me, maybe less than 30,000. Okay, to do a 6,000 meter peak. So, but again, I have friends, up in the mountains, so I always get that friendly discount. But yeah, I mean, if you do it yourself, self-sufficient trips, they're not so expensive. But if you have an actual expedition where you need everything, all the luxuries, then it will cost you a lot.
That's true.
So yeah.
Talking about sorry that I cut you off because I'm so fascinated about the cost and all that stuff. So going back, I mean, can you talk about a little bit of your preparation and the regime and the fitness that goes along there?
So for expeditions, because it's a whole month's trip, you need to be out there for the whole month. So you really need to be physically fit as well. And plus you need to be very mentally prepared, because you'll be out there in the jungle or the mountains, and that you'll be short of a lot of things. So you'll have to know how to live without them. You have to improvise a lot. And that is going to be difficult, walking for kilometers and kilometers, climbing and going down, and so on and so forth. And sometimes we don't even eat proper food, because sometimes there's not enough food. So we have to basically just have granolas for lunch or just something like that, So it's a whole month's trip. So you need to be really, really fit. And you need to do your physical fitness. Basically, you run, you go to the gym and so on and so forth. But besides that, I mean, you know how physical fitness goes about, right? You just need to tone yourself up. But when it comes to mental fitness, that's a different game, you know. You need to really prepare yourself mentally, which means a lot of reading, a lot of research ahead, a lot of asking a lot of questions to people who've been there before, so that you know what exactly is waiting for you. So, and plus you do a lot of meditation, also breathing exercises, and to keep you calm, to keep you, you know, all of that if you're going to the Himalayas. So yeah, that is the preparation bit. It's not easy as well, because as you can see, a lot of fit people also get kicked off Mount Everest or they die, you know. So it's not only your fitness actually. Sometimes, especially when you're climbing the Himalayas, it's a bit about luck also.
Wow.
Because if you're climbing up there, the weather can just change like that while you're coming down or while you're going up, and you just tossed off the mountain. So you have to be lucky. I remember when I was climbing Stoke Hungry, I was on my way to the base camp, almost reaching, and a lot of people were returning. I was like, "Why are you going back?" "Oh, the weather's just too bad. We can't summit." It was raining, it was snowing, and almost like a blizzard, you know. I was like, crap. I got really scared, you know, because that was my first time doing a big peak as well. And I looked up there were clouds up in the mountain, you know. So I was very, very scared. I asked my guy, I was like, will I be able to make it? And he says, don't worry, let's just go. I'm like, see, you know, Ali is my guide. Even if I reach halfway, I'm very happy. I don't want to, you know, risk myself if the mountain doesn't want me up there. So, but the day on the day that I summited, it was, you know, the weather was just beautiful, not a cloud in the sky. So I was that lucky. Whereas just a few days before that, people were kicked off the mountain like that. And there were a few people who died also on the way down.
Wow.
Yeah. About, I think one man passed out. I think his heart failed halfway the mountain. So his body was brought through a cab and everything. So yeah, there are unlucky people like that. And like I said, it depends a lot on your luck as well. Yeah, because you're working a lot with Mother Nature and you can do anything. If it wants to kick you out, it'll just bring in storm and clouds and yeah, you go. But if it wants you there, it looks after you. Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's luck and everything, but going up there, I think one of the things that really scares me is like, what are the things that you're going to face, right? So first thing is what I've, like before doing this interview, I had some research doing it. I think one of the things that really make people scared is the whole lack of air and like nauseousness. Do you ever experience that, or have you like ever feel nauseous?
So you get your altitude sickness when you climb up the Himalayas, your AMS, your, you know, altitude cerebral edema, sorry.
No problem, no problem. No problem, guys. Okay.
Cerebral edema.
Okay.
So you basically, you know, accumulation of fluid in your brain, accumulation of pulmonary edema, accumulation of liquid in your lungs. So you get that. You have a lot of acute mountain sicknesses and things like that.
You can't breathe when it's like that, or
it's more of less oxygen in your body, can't really function. So you get all these altitude sicknesses. So whereas if you prepare yourself, I'm not saying you're free out of those. You can get them, especially if you're exposed in the mountain. You still can get them, but it depends from person to person as well. So I have never faced any kind of altitude sickness whatsoever. I don't know why. Maybe it could be because I live up in Shillong as well, and it's almost 2,000 meters above sea level, and I think we consider ourselves hill people. So it's a lot easy on people who are from the hills. Like the Sherpas, for example, from the Himalayas, it's a lot easier on people from the hills, but for people from the plains, it's a lot harder. So they need to train their lungs to be able to survive on very little oxygen. To adapt to very little oxygen and all that. Okay. So, but myself, I've never had any kind of mountain sickness. Okay. However, I've had like dehydration and stuff like that, but not anything serious, and God forbid anything happens in the future. Yeah.
God forbid.
Yeah.
Can you explain a bit about? We talk about all this, but can you tell me about the experience that you went through when you were climbing Stock Kangri? I think it's one of the most hardest and most. I think you have to go through that small. I think based on my experience, based on my research, I was like seeing. I was like, "Wow, you climb this?" So we have all the time in the world. So why don't you explain about the whole journey? How did you went from point A to point B, and how was the experiences? What did you like? What you don't like about it?
Okay. So Stoke Kangri, right? That was 2018. I would climbed up Stoke Kangri in 2018. I didn't actually plan to go to Stoke Kangri that year. I was planning to go to Nepal instead to do some other peak. But my friend Parth, who is a climber, he's an Everester himself. He didn't climb Everest then, but he's like, he's the same as me. He had the same dreams and everything. So he advised me, to go to Stoke Kangri instead. So he was planning to go there himself. So we went there, and I did not know too much about the peak as well. Just a bit of research here and there, but we got a really good guide, Ali. So this peak is over 6,153 meters, which means 20,000 feet. Okay. Which means you get your altitude sickness, you get all of this, all of that, So the trek, usually before reaching the base of the mountain, we have to trek for a few days. The trek was around 5 days, I think, or less than that. It was supposed to be around 5 days, but if I'm not mistaken, since my team and I were quite fast and strong, we went ahead and we skipped one camp. Then we reached the base camp after 4 days, I think, 4 days. Then at the base camp, we could see the mountain. That's where we see Stoke Kangri, And we usually, so after we've stayed and acclimatized, because at camps, we usually have camps because we need to acclimatize. We need our bodies to adapt to the very less oxygen. Otherwise, we pass out, So acclimatization at every camp. So
acclimatization, you mean like you have to like refuel yourself kind of thing?
No, acclimatization means more like breathing that very thin air that's there at the point of time.
Okay.
Getting your body used to the very less oxygen. So your body produces more red blood cells. Okay, so your body gets used to the very less oxygen. Because if you're not, suppose right now you're in a helicopter and they drop you on the summit of Everest, you'll just pass out because there's no oxygen. There is oxygen, but very little, very scarce. So that's the meaning of acclimatization, to get your body used to the very less oxygen. So the scarcity of oxygen. So that's what we would do at every camp: acclimatize and acclimatize and acclimatize until we reach base camp. And base camp we usually stay for 2 days, so we acclimatize very well. And when it's summit day, that means the day we actually climb up the mountain. We usually leave at night at around 11 p.m. or 9 p.m. Because we need to climb the whole night up the mountain in order to reach the summit at sunrise.
The whole night?
Yeah, the whole night. We climb in the darkness. So just depending on our torchlights, we climb the whole night and we usually reach by sunrise. So you can see the beauty of, the sunrise on you. And also to prevent the snow from melting.
Oh, okay.
Because if it's too hot up there and, you're still up there, and if the snow starts melting,
Avalanche.
then that's quite dangerous, So last time I remember, my team was quite late. Other teams have reached. My team was quite late. We restarted off, I think, a little late as well. And I became very slow because I was very tired. Okay, so I was basically struggling up the summit. But I had a very strong team. They supported me throughout, and I went up. And when we came down, it was quite late then, about 1 o'clock, I think, 1 or 2. We were halfway on the shoulder of the mountain. And I suddenly realized, the mountain was melting. The snow was melting. It was like waterfalls everywhere, snow falling. And I was just like, stepping on something that was this deep,
Wow.
So it was a big struggle going down as well, So, but we somehow managed. But that was a scary bit, it's just seeing all of the snow melting. And then the guy told me, this is why we need to leave earlier, so that, we prevent all of this from happening. But that's how I learned, if I don't see it, I don't learn it. So I learned that, and we managed to come down before sunset, and I was just completely exhausted after that. I was completely dehydrated. I threw up every food that I ate. I couldn't eat anything. Whenever I just threw up.
Okay.
So that night I suffered when I came back from the summit. But it was all worth it,
Okay,
The view and everything was just amazing,
Yeah.
So when I came back down, I was just suffering a lot that night. I just survived.
That acclimatization thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was more of dehydration for me.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just, hydrated myself, and by morning it was all right. Then by morning we left and we went back to Stoke village, So we didn't need to camp anymore, because when you go up, you need to acclimatize, hence you need to stay. But when you go back, you're properly acclimatized, so you can just skip all these camps. And unless it's very far, then you need to stay. But if the next village where they pick you up from is near, then you just walk straight to the village.
So there's no road of any sort that connects to the. You have to hike.
You have to hike, yeah. Because most of these mountains don't have a driveway up to them. So you always have to trek up to the base camp.
Okay. How did he get food up there?
So that's what, if the expeditions, there's a whole team of porters, of climbers, of beast of burden carrying all the food.
Okay.
And you'll see all these porters who are extremely strong carrying refrigerators on their backs
Whoa.
up the mountains, carrying planks of wood and tin and for construction, everything, The Sherpa people are just, the porters of Nepal, of the Himalayas, they're extremely strong people. They're like, superheroes. Because I don't think anybody else can do that except the porters from there,
That's true. That'll be a good segue to talk about Nims Purja, right? I was really fascinated by this guy
Yeah.
because when I saw you and I was looking through Instagram, I saw a book signed by him. I was like, who is this guy? Like 14 peaks? Okay, gotta know this guy. So I went to Joe Rogan and I checked his podcast. Man, this guy is one hell of a guy. So how did you resonate with him through all this, you seeing the Sherpas, and he's such a guy where he's just amazing, 14 peaks, and he has a documentary as well. So what is your why of all people Nims?
Why of all people Nims, as in?
Like why of all the role models, and like I think Nims is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, Nims is one of my role models. Why? Because I've always been fascinated by people who wanted to do all the 14 highest peaks in the world. Okay, because that's a lifetime commitment, 14 highest peaks in the world, and they're all located. Most of them in the Himalayas and the Karakoram, especially the peaks in the Karakoram range in Pakistan. They're one of the toughest peaks, So I've always been fascinated by them, and I knew the record holder before had done it in 6-7 years, Ryan Holmeisner. But then I came across Nims, through somebody told me, like, have you heard of this guy? He's trying to climb that peak, for in 6 months. I'm like, what? Who the hell is he?
I think one of his few peaks was, I think his first peak was Annapurna, right?
Yeah, Annapurna. So I'm like, what? Then he was like, yeah, check him out on Instagram. He's there on Instagram. Then I went to his profile. I'm like, oh my God, he looks young. Okay. He's planning to do it in 6 months. I was like, okay, I have to follow this guy. Let's see how this project goes, And then I kept on following him. And every time I see this guy scales a mountain so easily, I'm like, how does he do it? This is superhuman. Because I've known other mountaineers and they take time. They take one year, one mountain, but this guy does, 14 mountains in 6 months, 7 months. So that was just amazing. I mean, I came to know about him. I followed him, messaged him. He replies.
He replied.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And just saying the fact that this is very inspirational myself.
So humble.
Yeah, it's very
person.
humble. Yeah. So I was very thrilled when he replied and all that.
Yes.
I did not
You can
expect
frame
that.
that finally.
So I messaged his whole team, congratulating them and so on and so forth. And when they finally finished the project, then after that, his book came out, and one of my friends from UK gifted me that book, and it was signed by him.
Like sign, like is it like
signed by
sign?
him. Yeah, that's
wow.
There's a different set of books that they usually sell. The public is signed by him. So that was something,
Amazing.
So yeah. And when his movie came out recently, that was just over the top. Yeah.
I mean, looking at his
But to be like Nims, to be like his team, you really need to train hard for that. You really need to be someone. And also, climbing mountains is not just training or going out there, it's also sponsorships in a way. You need to be sponsored because it's very expensive to climb a mountain, especially the Himalayas, and to hire, to have an expedition is very expensive. So you need to get sponsorships from companies. You need to request people to sponsor you. And then, when you finally finish it, you sort of like endorse the company or something like that, So there's a lot. Actually, the hardest part is not the climbing, it's the sponsorship in a way. Because you need to really go and beg around, to say, please sponsor me, I need to climb a mountain. You need to sell your soul sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be so pathetic to ask. Like,
exactly, you have to
that's
beg,
amazing.
basically.
Yeah,
You have to beg. Yeah.
Man, talking about Nims, I mean, like you said, he's like a total, like, this guy, I thought maybe he faked it. Like, in the interview with Joe Rogan, he actually told that I actually, like, get in contact my fans or my supporters. I write it, like, personally. So, like, even Joe Rogan wrote to him and he actually replied it. And he thought that it was a huge team of his team that he replied. And he actually replied to you. He said in person. That was, he's a very humble guy. So, one thing about him that really strikes me is that he was in the Gurkhas, right?
Mhm.
And he actually wants to climb Mount and these various peaks because he wants to elevate the Nepalis, right?
Mhm.
And not just that, he also wants to show that impossible is not a word kind of
Yes,
thing.
yes.
So do you resonate with that when you climb these and even to the base camp of Mount Everest? And I know one day you're gonna climb Mount Everest. And yeah, that is for sure. So stay tuned for that show. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah,
Yeah.
how do you when you do these climbs or when you do especially when you go to the Himalayas and all that stuff, do you actually like what is your main objective though? Yeah, okay, maybe self-achievement, but like he's like it's more than just that, right?
Yeah. Um, like you said, first of all, is self-achievement.
Yeah.
It's more of, it's what I love to do actually. For me, it's no competition. It's not who's faster than who or who's climbing more mountains than who. For me personally, it's just what I love to do. I love challenging myself. I want to test my limits. So outdoor sports, especially the mountains, they really put me, they really put me out there and test my limits. And it's just this connection that I have with myself. That I really need to know myself. I really need to put myself out there to know where's the limit for me. So that's why I climb the mountains, and that's why I'm connected. I'm so connected to this sport. Mountaineering is because of that, because you have everything working against you. The terrain, the thin air, and so on and so forth. Everything working against you, but how you come out of that, how you toughen yourself up to come out of that, to be able to succeed. That's more of me testing my own limits. And it's not really about anything else. It's not really about competition and all that. But there's one thing that I understand also, is that things like that, you can't do it alone. You need a team with you. So for me, it's also about that, about meeting people, having this community of like-minded people, doing things that they love together, and sharing stories and sharing memories. So hence, I really like to connect to some of the Khasi people who are into mountaineering as well. So that's what I do when I'm on social media. I follow, and these climbers follow me, and I follow them, and local people over here, the community. So recently, when I went to Goachala as well, it was about that actually. I connected with all these Khasi people, the Khasi people who are living in Siliguri or in the West Bengal or somewhere else, but they're doing all these high altitude treks. I actually messaged each of them personally just to say, would you like to join me on a trip, to Goachala?
Yeah.
So Goachala was the closest option to me because it was just Sikkim. That time was a pandemic, I was like, no, I have to risk it this time. I have to go out. I cannot stay in this, in this house anymore. So booked my tickets, booked everything. And yeah, out of those, let's say 20 people that I messaged, it was only how many of us in the end that went? 5 of us.
Wow.
I think we have 5 of us, because what happened, some of them agreed for the trip. We all signed up. We've already made our payments. And before we left for the trip, somebody was positive with corona.
Yeah.
So they all had to cancel the whole trip, and it came to 5 of us only. It was just a bunch of Khasi people loving, high altitude trekkers and all that. We all went up to Goachala and we had a good time. So that's what, I associate with Nims also in his Nepali community, whereas I want to do it with my Khasi community in a way, like, we want to do things together so that, our community can grow in a way, maybe something can come out of what we're doing also, like-minded people, because in Meghalaya, we don't have a climbers society or community. We don't have a proper association. They were before, but they're not there anymore now. They're not up. Yeah. So that's why I was thinking, I want to do something in those terms also. So yeah.
That is kind of a good way to actually bring a more cohesive group.
Yeah.
So these guys were all amateur climbers.
No, they've done their treks and everything. I've seen. I don't just invite anybody who's not done anything, because that would be dangerous, right?
Yeah.
I wanted somebody who had an idea of high altitude, of this and that. So I actually checked each and every profile.
So you questioned them in different aspects as well.
Yeah. I checked out all the photographs, all the experiences. Like, okay, he'll be able to do it. Like, just judging it like that. Yeah. So, but then I messaged them, and we all ended up going on that trip together.
I think it's high time that you have this. I think nowadays people I'm seeing, they're into trekking, they're into biking and all that. Now Shillong is like such a catalyst where we can say that anything blossoms nowadays. So I think this is your time to grab this opportunity to be able to bring more of a community. I think you being the more experienced one, I think it's your time to.
It's same with caving as well. We're having a group of local cavers from here.
True. Oh,
Like
okay.
young people who
That
are
is
very
your team as
enthusiastic.
always.
Yeah. That's our team, and we've been trained by the European cavers.
Okay.
So we're holding expeditions, and our next expedition would be in Nagaland and all that. So we're starting off right now,
Okay.
but we're moving there, slowly and steadily.
So how did you know, how do you Jan?
How do I know Jan?
Because he did some trekking. I think
Wow.
he's also a very enthusiast when it comes to tourism and all that.
Yes.
So how did you meet him?
How did I first meet Jan? Wow, I have to go back now.
Is it Russian? Must be.
No. How did I meet Jan?
Jan means
Yeah. Wow, gosh, I have to go back. So Jan is in the outdoor community in Shillong. The outdoor community is a handful in Shillong, especially guys like them who are trained and certified and so on and so forth, I think I might have met Jan from my other friend, Zorba. I think, I remember. Yeah, it was Zorba. There was a marathon that was happening in Malkarwat. So we had to do some photographs, volunteering for some photographs and all that. And that's where I met Jan. He came with his camera. He had to do the whole shoot and I with my camera. And that's how we met, And then I knew he was in the biking community. Then he knew I was sort of caving and climbing. And that's how we clicked. And we became friends from then onwards. Then we go on trips and all that,
So Bayan has always been one. I mean, he's in my uncle as well. We're talking about the Jan, right? The guy in the tourism, no?
Yes, I'm talking about Jan.
Is it?
Jan Kumar, right?
Oh, no. I was saying.
Oh, you're talking about Bayan.
Bayan.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So this is a different kind of.
Yes.
Okay. My apologies. It's okay. We know that finally.
Yes. So Bayan.
Yeah.
Bayan is he's my dad's friend actually. So they have this show on Doordarshan called
That's
the DNF, and I was like, what? How?
So okay. That's it. It's like anyway. Okay.
So So Jan is my dad's friend.
Okay.
They have this show called A Day in a Village.
Okay.
So it's my dad's program, and by Jan, I call him.
Yeah.
He hosts the program, and that's how I know him. But that's how I know. He's always been my dad's friend.
Okay.
So
he's also into trekking.
Yeah, into
all
trekking.
That. So
All
that's why
that,
I thought maybe the connection.
Yes.
Yeah, he's one of those guys where.
I thought you were talking about Jan Kumar.
Jan Kumar. It's like it's okay. He also is one. It always makes me think that him always like not that the biking the other one. Oh, okay. Anyway, he's a fit. I mean, for my uncles, he's very very fit.
Yeah, he's very fit. Yes.
Man, but that's quite funny when the confusion happened. Okay, so are you talking about? Man, sometimes I get lost here. Okay, so we were talking about NIMS, and I think one of the things that you were telling about is that the begging for sponsors, right? And he even wrote a letter to that was the guy name from Virgin, the Virgin Airlines and whatever Richard guy, whatever name. He actually wrote like handwritten it. He like covered it and he sent it, right? So what about you when it comes to sponsorships? Yeah, so I think the tea is getting cold. So
What is there now?
yeah,
I think it's
that's
just
the one I can.
my throat's dry now.
So anyway, so don't mind, guys. It's just a small.
Also those.
Yeah, we were talking about NIMS, and he was like writing this letter to the CEO of Virgin, and he actually like wrote it hand like 2-3 pages, and he actually sent that. And he didn't get any replies. What about you? How have the sponsorship have been? I think one sponsorship that you have been really closely associated was Garmin. I think the watches. Did they help you in any other way?
No, it wasn't Garmin. So my first sponsorship was by Kingfisher.
Okay.
So they sponsored me to do the whole Everest Base Camp trek thing and everything. And then Garmin was just an ad that I did for them. They don't really sponsor me for anything as such.
Okay.
But I could try in the future. Yeah. But they haven't sponsored me for any kind of trip.
Okay.
So when it comes to sponsorships, for now, I don't have.
It's okay. So no problem. Because you're too enthusiastic, I think the whole thing.
My throat is dry actually.
You can drink more. This one, the best interviews in
We've been
yeah.
talking for a long time.
Yeah, it's one thing. I think we've been talking about how much
So-
now? 1 hour and a half. Right? More, right?
So when it comes to sponsorships, for now, most of it I finance it myself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so even for expeditions and all that, although there's a little discount, especially for caving for locals,
Mhm.
but we still have to pay, our
Okay.
contribution to the expedition. The other expeditions that I've done are mostly self-financed. Which is why I said, I can't do it so often
Okay,
because I
okay.
have to save a lot of money
Lot of
for
money.
that. Yeah, especially climbing.
Mm.
Caving to some point is adjustable because it's in Meghalaya
True.
and the travel expenses are
Yeah.
not so much. Whereas if I have to go climbing, flights are really expensive, So hence, most of it is self-financed for now. But there are sponsorships that are coming up soon for our expeditions, and I think I'm pretty lucky that I think our team got in contact with a few brands and a few foundations for caving, and so like I said, the exhibition that would happen soon would be sponsored.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be good. I guess these things are not just overnight. Like
Yeah.
why I'm trying to bring a kind of like a correlation between you and Nims, because he sold his house. He was like in the Gurkhas, and he's one of the special ops of England and the British, and he has to like really put, it's not like a one day thing that you just like, okay, one day I'll go there and suddenly like, everything will be okay, but you have to really, really give everything you've got, right? So it's really important that I think sponsorships, I hope that they see this, and you being a very talented, a person who climbs and who do many things, will probably like, hopefully they see the story and see this podcast, right? I think we really have some talented people, but they just need a little bit of financial
Financial help, yes,
financial help.
exactly. Yes.
So what is your next trip though?
I'm seeing Nagaland this year.
Okay.
Caving in Nagaland.
Any particular
It'll be
cave?
it'll be the first expedition being held. The first time the caves in Nagaland will be explored.
Same
So
team,
our team
Thomas
is
and
going,
everybody.
Thomas and some European cavers and the locals from here. So
Okay.
we're going to Nagaland probably this December if there's no more lockdown or pandemic.
I don't have lockdowns, man.
Yes,
It's really-
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
So that
Any-
will probably happen, yeah. And as for climbing, I was thinking of going to Ladakh again and do a few more 6,000 meter peaks.
Okay.
And if not that, I do a basic some courses in mountaineering and all that. And yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, at the end of the day, so any particular like cave in Nagaland?
Sorry.
Any particular cave in Nagaland?
There's no particular cave. Expeditions are more of finding new caves and
Okay,
having
okay.
them.
And just
So-
like, you're okay, right? You can do the whatever you want.
Oh my god, my son is just telling me no, enough talking.
Enough talking, man. This guy is asking you too many questions, dude. Good.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut this one problem. We're gonna cut. We have to find it
Yeah,
out.
exactly.
Okay, so no, so you actually go on expedition and try to make them more, what shall we say, trying to recognize different caves, native caves, right? So that's quite cool. I mean, we have a very unexplored nature, especially when it comes to environment and the whole, the Shillong and Northeast as well have so many things to offer, but we just need to find it, like hidden treasures everywhere, right? So I hope that you get this trip done. So let's go to a more lighter part of the show though. So as I was researching about you, I saw that you were Cleopatra, right? And you actually, I mean, the saddest part is like the way you describe your friend. I was like, what? So
Did you see that on the Instagram post where
in the team you go in
fancy
depth.
dress and dressed
Yeah.
as Cleopatra? Okay.
How did that? I think your mom helped you or something. Is it your grandmother?
My aunts, but
Okay.
I was actually dressed as Cleopatra because as a kid I was fascinated by Cleopatra.
Okay. You tried to conquer the world, huh?
Yeah, something I always was fascinated by this female figure,
Yeah,
conquering
yeah.
the world, this strong figure
Yeah,
and all
strong
that.
figure.
So
Right from that age, you had that. Whoa.
There was this Cleopatra movie that came out in those years, you know.
Okay. Was it the Brad Pitt one? No. Oh, that was forget about that. That was
So when that movie came out, I was totally fascinated by it.
yeah.
Although it's not a kids movie.
Very
There
much.
were some scenes, you know, my parents had to close my eyes. yeah.
Yeah.
But I was always fascinated by this Queen Cleopatra, you know.
Yeah.
By this name, by this, you know, this beautiful queen trying to conquer them. She was so powerful, and at a young age, she managed to, you know, rule Egypt and so on and so forth. So that's why I just chose to dress like her.
That was your own choice.
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's like of all things, Cleopatra though, I think it's really amazing. Did you like have to do anything? You know, had to give a speech or you know, just have to walk the ramp or something?
I think I would just had to walk the ramp. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
it. No? What about your friend though? You said she actually shaved herself.
She shaved her head. Yes.
Man, those parents are not cool, man.
She's my cousin actually.
Oh.
She shaved her head at that point of time, and they were thinking of what ways to dress her up. You know how which figure to dress her up as, and they finally came to Mahatma Gandhi. They were like, she's skinny enough to look like Mahatma Gandhi. She has a shaved head, so they dressed her up like Mahatma Gandhi and painted, you know, those little, you know, hairlines with paint on her bald head, you know.
My goodness, man.
So yeah, exactly. That's what they did.
And even eyebrows were like
yeah,
white.
even eyebrows.
Both
Yeah.
are
That
like
was paint. That was actually paint.
That was bonded
So
at first.
it took her weeks to get that paint off her head and her eyebrows.
Oh.
But we had so we didn't even have body paint. You know,
Yeah,
it was so limited. But we could, you know, we could manage with anything, improvise with anything.
I hope
So that's what happened.
It wasn't those like you know house painting or like these.
No, it was acrylic paint. I think it was like
thank
acrylic
God
paint.
for that. That was more embarrassing though.
That was very funny. So yeah, she dressed up as Mahatma Gandhi, and I went as Cleopatra, and you know the two leaders meeting.
Wow.
So we were like, "Wow, you're Cleopatra, and I'm Mahatma Gandhi." Or that's when that was a very funny.
Yeah, contrasting.
Yeah, contrasting. Yeah.
One's like a very powerful figure. One's a person preach peace.
Yeah, preach peace.
Man by
Yeah.
this.
But both leaders.
Yeah, both leaders. Yeah, that was really cool. So that was in. You passed out from. If I'm not mistaken, Mary's no.
Yeah, St. Mary's School,
Mary's, right?
St. Mary's College.
I think that was really, really cool. So, I mean, what are I feel always these pageants and all these stuff really makes you who you are, right? And another thing, very interesting fact. I know you're gonna really hate this, but we talked the other day. So you won your second or first runners up in.
It was the first runners up, the university freshers. Yeah.
I was like,
Did you participate in that?
No,
Okay.
I actually didn't win. So sad.
Wait. So you participated in?
No. I
Your
actually
department?
My department. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I lost there. I think I won.
Okay.
Anyway.
You know, that was quite I didn't even actually want to do that.
Yeah.
I was forced, sort of like, they made me when they were like, no, you should go for it. I'm like, please, I don't do pageants. I can barely walk, just please don't send me out there. I'll embarrass you all. They're like, no, we don't care. We just want you to do it. You do it for the department.
That's true.
And I just did it. And I remembered, both my friends and I, the one who won as well, were both very sort of, we're not very dainty, you know what I mean?
It was Debo, right? The guy that you walked with.
Probably, yes. I
The
don't
guy.
remember his name anymore.
Yeah,
But yes, he's
Debo,
tall. Yes.
Yeah. He actually followed me on Instagram and I was like, this guy following me. Then he's like, then after researching, he's from Yahoo, so the connection was there.
Yeah.
But you did well though. You did well. I mean,
Okay,
I saw there. I was like, yeah.
I'm not much of a pageant girl, but if I have to do it, I just do it. I'll do anything.
This is small thing. What are you climbing Mount Everest? Come on. So
that was a fun thing though, to do pageants, walking in heels. I was shaking, I'm telling you. I was trembling on the
When
stage,
you standing
with
with
heels, because I'm not used to all of that,
Yeah.
right? And that was just too much for me. But
Yeah.
managed it somehow.
You did
Learning
well.
experience,
And can be in your resume as well. So flexing
We'll
resume.
see.
A flexing resume.
We'll see.
So yeah, that's really cool. I mean, so you being a Cleopatra at one point, which is really cool, winning the first runners up in varsity. So you're really fashionable yourself too. So I may say. So how did your fashion influence came to being? I think did you have any were you always been fashionable or this is how it just flows? Did you have to research?
besides doing all, the sports and all that, I really, really like fashion and dressing up as well. I like all the dainty things as well. I like all of those. So, and my family, especially my aunt, has been quite an influence on me.
Okay.
She's a musician.
Okay.
Tibriti, she's a blues musician. So she's always wearing these snazzy clothes on stage,
Okay.
So she always has the best outfit every day, So I'm always looking up to her when she's dressing up. So I've always wanted, to be like that, to be a bit fashionable, to look nice. I just, like to look nice and be presentable, and yeah, that's why. But I love fashion. I love dressing up. Yes, yeah,
That actually, that's good. At least it has a balance in your life.
yeah. I mean, I'm not all like don't look good, don't put makeup.
Yeah.
I'm into all of that as well.
There you go, guys, girls as well. Don't say that you're not beautiful.
Yeah.
I think you are beautiful, but just need to find out the right people, right?
Yeah.
The right people, the right dress, it really works out. I've always met like even females who always say, I don't feel beautiful. But I think you just need to experiment a bit with fashion, right? Like if you think about some friends of mine who will ask me, I'm not fashionable. It's like you just need to do your research, man. Just trying to find your own way.
Yeah.
Like you have your own.
And
sense.
but my family as well, the females really like to dress up.
Okay.
So like one of my teachers said, glamour runs in your family. Like glam runs in your family. I said, okay, besides outdoor baby glam as well. But yeah, I mean, I like to do all the girly stuff as well. A lot of it.
Yeah. It's one of the things that really makes you interesting.
So
yeah.
That's what they say, but
It has like that.
I'm still a woman at the end of the day.
Yeah. It's polarizing, It's like, she's a climber.
Yeah.
You dress up? It's like, yeah, I do, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway.
I mean, there's nothing
wrong with that.
there's no
actually.
relation to that as well, yeah.
The society perceiving this
Just
different
because
way.
you climb, you should be like a boy.
Exactly.
No,
It's-
you
people
can
do
still be
that.
a girl and climb. You
Exactly.
can still wear pink and do whatever you want, and you can
Mhm.
still wear pink and go climbing. You can still put on a flower in
Exactly,
your hair and
exactly.
go caving,
I think
So
society
for me,
is-
it's like that. Yeah.
It's very
Any girl can be whatever she wants,
Mm.
honestly.
exactly.
Yeah.
Be whatever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, don't limit yourself. Enjoy, experiment, and
Yeah.
you can get the best out of life.
Yeah.
So you're an example of that too. So you can do things at the same time and shine in both things. Walk with grace and leave with grace as well. So I really like today's conversation. We really had a good conversation, the podcast, and for all those people who are listening on YouTube as well, please follow her on Instagram. It'll be on the social down below and as well on the screen. Really had a good conversation with you and really went in depth about various other things about your life and all that. I want to say thank you for coming on the show. It's been a pleasure having you, and I know you have a very busy schedule, but despite the fact that you have a busy schedule, you're able to make time. So do follow her on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel now. No. Watch her garden.
I think I do have, but it's inactive.
Inactive. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I need to post more of that.
Yeah.
I think really that'll be really good. Your vlogs and everything. It'll really
That's
be.
just too much work at the moment.
Yeah, that is true. You have
Yeah.
to carry that stick and that'll be something. But yeah, that'll be really, really cool on Instagram. Follow her on Instagram, and she's such an amazing person. And we really had a great conversation in the podcast. We went in depth about your life, and I think this one the things that makes podcasts interesting, that we get to know who you are, because we always see like, Naomi is the climber or whatever it may be. So before we close this podcast, our conversation has been delightful. Why don't you, I know we haven't never done this, but why don't you say something to the middle camera that what is your advice to people who wants to follow their dreams? Whatever you want to say. Yeah, shout out to what people that you want to shout out right now.
My advice is to just be yourself as much as possible, to the point where people feel comfortable to be themselves in front of you. So, and if you really want something, you have to, if you follow your dreams, you have to work hard. And because if you work hard, everything works out, and just be adjustable in life, when it comes to failure, when it comes to success. You have to celebrate everything that there is in life, and live life to the fullest. Try and be positive and happy, and because it's not worth sulking on too many things, and basically that.
I'm going to shout out to any
Live
one of your
freely.
your best friends or anyone out there? Like,
Oh gosh, if I have to name them, I have to name them all.
oh
So
yeah,
shout out to all of my friends and yeah, yeah,
that's it.
that's it.
That's it. Yeah. So anyway,
I don't want to name all of them because if I miss out a name, they'll all come
oh,
back.
so yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you will mention me.
Oh, and thank you so much to Jones for
Oh,
having me on this show. Yeah,
Okay, thanks.
this
Thanks.
has been very delightful.
Yeah.
One of the most, I think, very comfortable interviews that I've done.
Yeah.
Very myself.
Yeah. This is why I like having guests who are
Mm.
comfortable and talking about life.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming, man. Seriously, it's really a huge joy for all of us. And you are the first female as well on the podcast and on YouTube
I
as
hope
well.
I didn't mess it up.
Yeah, you didn't mess it up. Congratulations.
Hey, don't judge me, alright?
You did well. You did great. Yeah. So before we close, I will say thank you for watching, and do follow her on Instagram as well. And until next time, have a great evening ahead. Grab a cup of coffee, have a relaxing conversation, and not just that, remember that live life to the fullest, and yeah, have a great time, and just have a cool conversation with anyone you have. And until next time, see you soon, and God bless. Done. Yo, what's up?
Thank you so much. Wow, how long have we been talking for?
It's long, man. Look.
2 hours.